Good afternoon, church. How are you guys doing? Well, we are so glad that you are with us this weekend to celebrate and to worship together. Today is actually a really cool day because we have a lot of great things going on. In fact, we're starting a brand new series today called For the World. So I don't want to take up a lot of time, but before we continue on with our worship today, there's something that we wanted to mention to you to kind of put on your mental radar for something that's coming up that I think is going to be an incredible opportunity for everyone that calls Port City their home. In fact, it starts on October 6th. We are starting a brand new environment called Port City 101. And it's going to run for 2 weeks on the 6th and then again on the 13th. And if you are brand new to the church, or maybe you've been around here for a long time and you're just wanting to know more about PC3, this is a great opportunity for you. In fact, in 2 short sessions, you will learn about the various ministries that go on around here at Port City and about this incredible movement that God has started 20 years running. And it's going to be an awesome opportunity to hear all about the vision that inspires us around here, but also an incredible opportunity for you to meet a lot of our staff and others who are a part of the Port City family. So no matter where you are or how long you've been here, this is an opportunity that I hope most everyone gets the chance to experience. Like I said, it'll be on October 6th, and it actually runs during our 11 o'clock service time. It starts at 10:45, and it gives you the opportunity to drop your little ones off into the children's ministry and then come into the gallery to join us for that time together. And then after week 2, which is on the 13th, I believe that you will find some tangible next steps in this journey that God has called us all to. Now, spots are limited, so if you don't make it in on this go-around, don't worry. Coming in November, we are actually going to start offering Port City 101 twice a month. And so it's going to be an incredible time to be able to get to know more people around here and to help make such a big church feel pretty small, because you're going to get plugged in and get to meet some incredible people along the way. So, today we're worshiping. And in fact, worship should be a part of every aspect of our lives. And today we get the opportunity of doing that both in song and also in teaching. So as we kind of continue to kick off our services today, why don't you go ahead and stand up, say hello to someone sitting next to you, and we will continue on with our worship today.
We get to worship a God that promises that He'll never leave us nor forsake us. And I believe that He's here today. So let's thank Him by worshiping Him. You are with me. What can separate us? You are for me. What can stand against us? Your love, it won't let go. I know it won't. Darkness, shadows have no power over me. Shame
another in the fire, standing next to me. There was another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding of how I've been set free? There is a cross that bears the burden, where another died for me. There is another in the fire. All my dead left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. And should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning, either way I won't bow to the fiends of this world. And I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. Who should I ever need reminding? Well, power sets me free. There is a grave that holds nobody, and now that power lives reminded of that truth tonight. That He is here with us. That darkness bows to Him. He's victorious over all. The head that once was crowned with thorns is crowned with glory now. The Savior knelt to wash our feet, and now at His feet we bow. The one who wore our sin and shame, now robed in majesty, the radiance of perfect love now shines for all to see. Your name is victory, and all praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. You crown Him with your praise. You're my King. The fear that held us now gives way to Him who is our peace. His final breath upon the cross is now alive in Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. By Your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In Your name I come alive to declare Your victory. The resurrected King is Come on, church. By Your Spirit be our anthem tonight. The resurrected King is resurrected to declare Your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By Your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In Your name I come alive to declare Your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. I'm alive in Jesus. It's by Your name that the tomb where soldiers watched in vain was borrowed for 3 days. His body there would not remain. guys pray with me? God, we come to worship you. God, we come to know your heart. Thank you for the cross, where you would lay down your life for us so we might be known by you. We might be able to walk with you. So we give you praise tonight that your name is the name above all names. Would you open our hearts to hear your voice, that we would live for you, we would breathe for you, and you would become our heart's desire, that we would be a church that declares your greatness and your glory in this city. So we worship you tonight. Pray that the words we just sang and declared with our mouth, that they would resonate in our heart, that you are victorious. And so if we are standing in a place of guilt and shame or fear or darkness, that you are already victorious over where we are, that we would know that you are with us in the battle. So we rest in you. We give you praise. It's in the name of Jesus that we pray and sing. Amen. Thanks for singing with us. You can have a seat. And as you do, I'm going to invite our host team forward to receive the offering.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys all so much for being here. I want to take a minute in our service to just kind of let you know a couple things that are going to be happening before we officially jump into the launch of our series called For the World. I love that song and just what we just sang, that there's this picture in my head that it's by his name that we come alive. And it's not like it doesn't just mean this, the 5 letters on a screen, but it's his essence, it's his character, it's his life. By who he is, we get to come alive. And it's this idea, the picture in my head is that there's this resurrected king, this one who has conquered everything that I'm afraid of or fearful of or hesitant towards. And he is building those things into my life every moment of every day. Every time I hear that song, that's the picture in my head. And so it's a great way for us, I think, to connect. I want to mention something. I was thinking about this last week, and as we're going through and kind of looking at what we're going to be doing the rest of this year, one of the things that we want to emphasize, we're going to work on this a little bit more strategically over the course of our church, is to emphasize certain things that we want to characterize our church, things that need to be embedded in our culture. And so for the next 4 months, from now till December, we're going to be using sort of as our emphasis this idea of generosity. And this is not a ploy to get you to give more money. That's not what this is about. But as I was thinking about this is what happened last week. Convoy of Hope was here, and we decided that we were going to give them $25,000. We partnered with them already, but this was a way for us to just sort of give them something we believe God was asking of us to give to them, to invest in what he's doing through their ministry around the world. And we don't do that because we have money laying around. That's not why. We're very, very strategic, and we work really, really hard to steward the money that we are entrusted with as the way we operate the ministries of Port City Community Church. But what's interesting that when we handed this, we said, hey, we're gonna give you guys $25,000, we all clapped and applauded because it felt good, and it feels good to be generous. We all know this. And in fact, most everybody in here wants to be, everybody I would assume wants to be generous. No one says, well, actually I don't, I wanna be stingy. No one says that. And so what we need to do though, but we gotta understand this is not just about giving money or not giving money. This is about becoming. This is about allowing God to do some things, to seeing some things different that we become. Because here's the reality. We've been very, very blessed to be a generous church for a long time, and we're very grateful. We've been the recipients of a lot of generosity. We get to be generous to other people. But here's what I want you to understand, two things. Number one is that generosity, a generous church, is simply an expression of generous people. And there are a lot of you who have been involved and been a part of our church in that way. We are very, very grateful. I'm very grateful that you continue, that God uses it immensely to help us do what it is that we believe we're called to do here in the city region and in fact around the world. And the other thing that we hear all the time is, well, I can't do that much. You know, we hear someone who matched a gift of $25,000, we hear someone who gave money on this or that. We go, well, my little bit doesn't count in the matter of whole things. What we want to do is we want to just blow that lie up. I want to understand that generosity is a matter of a heart. It's a matter of when you and I begin to really say, God, what is it you want us to do with what we have? And I want you to understand that everything matters. The reason is, it's not because it's not a lot or it's not a little. The reason is because what God honors is not our money, he honors our faith. And we avail stuff to him, believing and trusting him, no matter how big or how little it is. That's what he honors. And we're gonna learn to do that. It's not gonna be a whole 12, 14-week series on this. We're just gonna be emphasizing this in different ways to help us understand, to help God, allow God to do the formative work by which we become generous. So that's what we're gonna be doing. In fact, you're gonna understand hopefully by the end of tonight, at least why this whole process of becoming is so important for what it is that God wants to do in us and what I believe he wants to do through our church. And I'll be back out in about 35 seconds as we start our series called For the World. Thank you guys so much. All right, so tonight you probably want to buckle your seatbelt, because I got about 5 weeks of stuff to try and do in about 35 minutes. So I'm going to try to do that. I'll tell you what's happening, what excites me currently is about a month from now, a little less than a month from now, on October the 27th, we will be celebrating our 20th anniversary as a church, which is pretty staggering. I know it's pretty crazy to think about. 20 years, and so you can imagine what I've been doing over the last couple of months. I've been reading back through my journals back from 1996, January, February, March. I've been reading back through my journals from September, October of 1999, and just reading through. Y'all know that I've kept journals that long and write stuff down. Did y'all know that? I don't know if I ever mentioned that before to y'all or not. I have it in my own handwriting. Like, I can sit down and show you how terribly afraid I was. I can show you all the what ifs, all the what if this doesn't work out, all the insecurities, all the hesitations, they're all there. God, how do I know this is what you're doing? How do we know this? How do we know that? What about this? What if this happens? What if this? All in my own handwriting, wrestling out all those fears. So I've been just going back through that over and over and over again, and to sort of look at this season and what's happening. It's just a stunning thing for us, for me, for us to, I think, be able to behold and to consider. And part of what this journey was about is looking at our mission and then trying to understand what is it that God wants from us going forward. It has been a real treat to kind of just go back and sort of pause and stop and think about all the things that have happened over the last 20 years. But what really gets me excited is what the next 20 years might hold for us. And so I don't want to run past it, but I want to give you some handles tonight Some handles you can hold onto to understand what it is that you can expect from your church, from this church going forward. And I want for you to be a part. I want you to understand what it is that we're talking about. I'll tell you, about 10 years ago, I've had this happen to me, but about 10 years ago when we started Port City Church, it was essentially, the philosophy was, if I don't die in the first 3 years, that will be success. And so at the end of the 3 years, we didn't die. And so we figured, okay, we got another few years in us. And so that began this trajectory of about a 7 or 8 year run that was just wide open, things happening, lots of people, lots of fun, lots of just crazy, crazy things. And I'm pretty laid back. I don't typically get caught up in a lot of the past. I don't do a lot of that. I'm a very future forward person. And so there was just always this constantly the next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. I walk with people through the worst parts of their life, and it's like next thing. We did all these things. It was always just about the next thing, the next thing. And I remember about 10 years into the church, it was about 10 years ago, I drove up, and this building obviously is pretty big, and even that it was just more of it almost was like a dream. It wasn't real. I think I've shared this before, but I came into the office one morning, and I drove around the front side, and I stopped, and I saw, man, we have a pond out there, and I was like, man, we have palm trees. This is really cool. I went around the back side and pulled into a parking place back there by my office, and when I pulled in, I put my car in park. It was the most overwhelming feeling that I'd ever had. I'd never felt overwhelmed like that in my whole entire life, and it was just this crushing sense of being overwhelmed. And all I could think was, oh my God, what have I done? And it wasn't like, what have I done? It was like, what have I got myself into? I felt so inadequate. I felt so alone. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. We've got all this stuff happening. People think that we're doing great things, and I have no idea what to do with it. And it began this journey in me to start to look and to see. About this time, we had one of our board members was talking and said, Mike, it seems like we have a really clear mission to reach people and help them walk with God, but we don't really have a clear vision. We have a vision vacuum. We don't know what this looks like when this happens. And I didn't know what to do, and you want to blame everybody else. And so, but the last, that led about another 5-year journey. And about the last 5 years, I've kind of been on a hunt. And I started just praying this prayer, God, let me see. God, let me see. God, let me see. A lot of it was desperation. God, let me see what you want to do with this church so we can make a plan and include people in it. That was what it was. God, let me see the plan for this church. And that kind of gave way to, God, let me see you. Let me just see you. Let me learn who you are. Let me learn how to worship you. Let me see you for who you are. And then all this began to sort of emerge or collapse. It kind of freed me from a lot of the things that were happening and kind of emerged in this way to go, really, God, this is what you want for your church. This is what you expect from us. This is what happens when we fulfill our mission. So I want to give you some sort of insight into that. We're going to talk about this for the next few days, because the reality is, for a lot of people, especially if you've grown up in the West and this culture, a lot of people know what the church is against. We've made a list of all the things that the church is against, but I don't know that many people have stopped and thought about, what is the church for? What is the church for? Why did God leave us here in this world for? Does he just want to get some more sheep and less goats and then get rid of the goats and make us all sheep? What does God think about the goats? Like, what is it that we are for in this world? I remember a few years ago, I was traveling, and I was taking a taxi from the hotel, or from the airport to the hotel, and I was there, and the taxi driver started asking the kind of questions he always asks. And I have a rule: I never tell people what I do for a living, strangers what I do for a living. And it's not because I'm embarrassed. I've just done this for a long time. I know that when you tell someone you're a pastor, you're either getting nothing or you're getting everything, right? There's no neutral. So either the conversation is completely shut down, or you just get blah, and you're like, oh man, I was just trying to go to the airport, right? And so I'm always asked. So I'm in the taxi cab with this guy, and he's driving. And he says, "What are you here for?" I said, "I'm here for a conference." "What kind of conference?" "A leadership conference." "What kind of leadership conference?" "What's a leadership conference for people who like lead stuff?" And he just keeps on. Finally says, "Is it a Christian leadership conference? Is it a church leadership conference?" I said, "Yeah, it's a church leadership conference." He says, "A pastor leadership conference?" I said, "Yeah, it's for pastors." He said, "Are you a pastor? Are you a Christian pastor?" I said, "Yes, I'm a Christian pastor." He said, "Well, I'm an atheist." I said, "Awesome, I have a lot of atheists in my church." And we began this conversation. I'm just kidding. They all come to different services, not this one. And so I began to ask him, I said, so he starts to tell me about he's an atheist. He says, "I don't believe in God." And I said, "Awesome." I said, "What do you believe in?" He says, I just told you I'm an atheist. I told you I don't believe in God. I said, I know what you don't believe in. I'm just curious, what do you believe in? What do you actually know? You don't believe in God. What do you believe in? And that led to a whole other conversation. I think a lot of us, we have this kind of idea about the church. When we start talking about it, we talk about it in terms of the things that we stand against, the things that we know should not be the way they are in the world, and we take stands against those things. And we don't ever really stop and understand what it is that we are for. What is it we're for, and how do we be for those things without sacrificing or losing or compromising the way in which Jesus has called us to live? How do you do this? Well, I can tell you it's becoming harder and harder and harder in our culture, but I can also tell you I don't know that it's ever been more important. And so I invite you in to this journey. When you collide with Jesus, you'll see his heart for the world. You see God's heart for the world in John 3:16, right? 3:16 and 17. For God so loved the world, and he gave his only son, his one only son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but rather should have and be reunited and reconnected with this eternal, never-ending, original, uncreated life, restored to the way in which you were intended to live. That's what it means. The Son was not sent into the world to condemn the world, but he came into the world that the world might be saved through him, that we might find life. This is the way in which God shares, reveals this to us throughout the Gospels and through his Son, Jesus. And I want to talk about it from this way. So what I want to do today is I want to give you 3 assumptions and 2 statements. 3 assumptions and 2 statements. If you're here and you struggle with the church, or you struggle with the way of the church in the world, or you struggle with all the different things that all of us, I think if you've thought about this very deeply, have all struggled with how does this work together, I think these assumptions might make sense to you. At least I hope that they will. So the first assumption is this. The first assumption, and what I believe, real quickly about these assumptions, these are assumptions that get redeemed as we learn what it means to live our lives with God. That we learn to live within this reconciled relationship to God. And just one more aside, I've been on a campaign to kind of get us to stop thinking about sin and the gospel as a solution to a moral problem. The gospel isn't just about you sit up straight and behave yourselves. The gospel is about restoring us to the authority with which we have been given and intended to use and to live under. That's the point. In the very beginning, right, it says that God called us to rule and to reign, to subdue the earth, to exercise dominion. He has given us authority. I've spent a lot of time over the last few weeks and months kind of talking about this, and I want you to understand how important this is for us to get this. It's not just about you behaving better. It's about you stepping into the life that you have been called and created to live, to wield the kind of authority and power that God has made a way for you and I to take hold of in the gospel. I know people don't talk about it like this, but that's the way Jesus talked about it, and that's the way we need to start talking about it once again. So that's what we're gonna be doing. So assumption number 1, we have surrendered our calling to redemption, and instead we've substituted with our desire to take a stand. We have forsaken this call to be a redemptive agent in the world, and instead have decided to take stands on issues. And so the world has become well aware of what it is that we are against. For some of you, this is why your friends don't come to church, because they know that we don't like them. They know that we stand against them. The world knows what we are against. We have forsaken this call to be a redemptive agent and instead settled to simply take stands on issues. Assumption number 2, we have surrendered our calling to create and to contribute. We have surrendered our call to be culture makers in the world, and instead it's been substituted by an appetite to simply consume what the world has to offer. And this is not any more a fault thing than it's just the fact that you're born in America and we live in a consumer culture, and that's what we do. And so the second thing is we sort of have become a generation, even in the church, a generation of consumers. This is why people say things like this: well, I went to church and I didn't get anything out of it, so I'll go somewhere else and get something out of that, because we're looking for information, for things that we can consume, that we can use to make ourselves feel better or more spiritual or whatever it might be, and we just continue. The music was good there, it wasn't good there. there, it was two this, there, it was not this, there. We got the podcast here. We sort of just create a buffet for ourselves so we can consume the things that we like and enjoy about Christianity, about God, or whatever it might be. And then we can go, oh, now I have this in my own world. And we forsake the fact that we actually contribute something to it. Here's the problem. When churches start to play this game, when churches start to go, oh, we'll do this cooler than them, and then those people will come and join us here, or whether you do the same thing or not, the world never experiences the church. The world never experiences the force that the church is designed to be on the culture. That's what we're going to be talking about. We've exchanged that and settled for something we were never intended to settle for. Now, we could talk more about each of these, and we will over the next few weeks. The third assumption is we have reduced the call of Jesus. We've reduced the gospel down to a simple decision. I don't like using the term Christianity because I think it puts it into a religious category. I like to think about it as the way of Jesus, the reconciliation of us to the Father. It's a relationship, not a religion, but I'm going to use Christianity so you'll understand. One of my heroes and theological heroes, he said this. He said that Christianity is not a decision, it's a miracle. And I think we've lost that. The gospel isn't about do you want to go to heaven or do you want to go to hell? Well, if you want to go to heaven, choose Jesus. If not, do your own thing. Like, that's not a hard decision for most people to make. It's not a decision, it's a miracle. For you and I, Jesus is not a way to heaven. Jesus has come to make a way for us to be reconciled to the relationship that we have been made for. He's come to redeem and to work and to purchase back that which was stolen by the enemy and separated by our sin, and stays that way as long as we live in it, under its rule and its reign. That's why I want us to start thinking about this. So these three assumptions we're going to kind of build on over the next few weeks. So let me put this up there real quick. This is our mission statement in case you were unfamiliar. Most everybody in here, if you've been here any length of time, you've heard this. Our mission is to reach people and help them walk with God. 20 years in. This statement was written probably in 1998, like in this form. And we've just kind of noodled on it and pressed on it. It's been pushed on more than any statement in this church. We've tried to think about this. We've tried to look at it. Do we still believe this? 20 years in, I had to ask myself, does this still matter to me? Do I still care about this? Does this still get me up in the morning? And if so, why? Why do I still care about this? Well, we spent the last 6 months talking about this with our staff, so you're going to get both barrels tonight. So if you're bored, it actually won't bother me at all because I'm about to have a really good time up here. I can do this just by myself, so you're just kind of welcome to join in. But I'll tell you, every single word in this phrase, to reach people and help them walk with God, it matters. Every one. What you need to understand is this is what we do. This is what we set out to do all the time. We reach people. The picture of this is that we extend a hand to where people are. We reach out to them. We reach towards them. We go where you are, how you are. That's how we do that. We want to we want to position ourselves as a church to extend ourselves to people, whatever their need is, whatever their concern is, whatever their plight is. We want to extend ourselves to them. Sometimes it looks very corporate when we leverage our building and all of our stuff to help navigate disaster response during a hurricane. We want to extend ourselves to our community in tangible ways. This also means with people individually, reaching our hand, helping them with finances and helping them with marriages and helping them with addictions and helping them with all sorts of things in their families, walking through the most difficult things that people face. We extend ourselves to people. We reach out to them. Some of you, you've walked in here, we hear this all the time. People say, Mike, I came into Port City and I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel condemned. I felt like I could come and that I was accepted. The reason you feel that way is because you actually can come just like you are. Because our goal is to extend ourselves towards you, to meet you where you are, to reach people. It's all people. It's human beings. That's who we're trying to reach. And is important too. Some of you grew up in the church and you heard there's two kinds of churches or two ways to think about the gospel. There's evangelism and there's discipleship. People say, Mike, are you guys an evangelism church or are you guys a discipleship church? Well, my answer to that is Jesus only gave us one commission. It was to go make disciples. That's all it was. There wasn't anything different. To make disciples meant that you extended yourself towards people wherever they were. and you help them take those steps. You move them along. Some of you in this process, right, we are helping you wrestle out, and we are working together to figure out how you're going to leverage your life for impact, how you're using your business and your employment, the way you employ people. How do you use this to help build this life of God into people and into the people that are trusting you for leadership? And others of you, we're simply trying to help you take some of your first steps towards him because you're not sure what you believe about him. You're not sure if he's real. You're not sure if he's trustworthy. And we're just trying to help you on that. And it's both. It's both of those things. We're not one or the other. Evangelism is simply discipleship before you've trusted him with your life. That's all it is. The third thing is the word help. This is one of the most freeing things for me personally. This means I don't argue with people. People come to me all the time. They want to know where I stand on issues. They want to know all this kind of stuff. And our posture is we're not trying to convince people. We're not trying to argue with people. We're not trying to change people. We're just trying to help you. I believe that you've been made by God. You've been made for God. So everything I'm doing is just working towards it and to help you see who it is that you've been created to be and then just help you. And that we're always trying to be helpful. In fact, I would go so far as to say this. If you walk at me and say, Mike, and I do this all the time, people always ask me, Mike, where do we stand on this issue? And I'll say, I want you to tell me a name and I want you to tell me a story because we do not stand on issues, we walk with people. And those are two very different things. Did you hear me very clearly? I have opinions about every cultural issue on the planet, strong opinions. I have them. I told y'all a few weeks ago, nothing. I thought by the time I was 45, I would have all my theology figured out. I would be a Bible culture gunslinger, and I would be able to destroy any issue. Boom, 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 boom. And then I realized that what Jesus is more interested in is the people on the other end of those issues than the issues themselves, and perhaps we should do the same. I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid of them. People say, Mike, are you afraid to step on people's toes? I'm not afraid to step on people's toes, but I will never stomp on someone's heart. If you come and you have a question about an issue, I'm going to ask you for a name and I'm going to ask you for a story. Because until you know someone who struggles with the issue you're trying to take a stand on, you're always going to miss God's heart in it. This is what we do as a church because we are for the world. That's help. Help them walk. I love this. Walk. Do you know why? One of the most astounding things that human beings do, you realize that most of the creatures that exist in our world, none of them stand upright. If they got like arms and legs, they do this. Do you know why? Because this is a whole lot more stable than this. This is kind of weird, actually. I mean, we stand upright. Have you ever just thought about this? You can stand on one foot. You can jump around, and like I can do this. I mean, like if you took a pencil and that, it'd fall over. You took anything, it'd fall over. I mean, like it's astounding. And to think that our children learn how to do this just by just crawling around. And it looks something like this. They get over there and they crawl up on your chair or your desk, your table, and they crawl themselves up and they go, and they're up and they go, you see them do this? They go, whoa, this is kind of cool. I'm not sure how it's gonna work out, but it sure is weird. Then eventually it all kind of balances out. And it's like little hairs in your ears that tell them, oh, you're balanced. It's incredible. And they stand up and the parents are like, oh my gosh, get the phone, get the camera. And you run over there and you grab their fingers. You put your fingers out because their little fists can only grab around your fingers. You hold both of their fingers, then you pull them and they go, okay, come on. Are you getting this? And they start to walk one step, one wobbly step. And then you let go one finger. You pry it out and go one finger. And the other one over there and you like, get the other finger and they get it and they kind of wobble and they take one step and they take another step and they fall. You don't go, you're a terrible walker. How are you ever gonna get into college if you can't put one foot in front of the other? Right? Who says that to their kid? What do? You just reach back down and you pick them back up and you say, let's keep going. What about in your faith? Like, listen, if you're learning how to walk with God, guess what's going to happen to you? Any guesses? You're learning how to have faith and to trust in something else for your source of life. You're going to stumble and fall. I know a lot of people have made a habit of just kicking dirt on people when they're down. We want to be a church that puts our fingers out and said, come on, keep going. Do you know why? Because he is faithful to complete the work that he has begun in you. And we need to be together to help each other do that. We walk together. The third part, this last part, is with God. With God. This is really important. More important than I thought. I thought it was obvious. but it's not. I've stopped asking people or assuming that people go to Port City because I meet a lot of people out. And it's always fun. I don't go to your church. In fact, I don't like it at all. Oh, perfect. Awesome. Thanks. So I'll ask someone, I'll say, hey, they'll say, hey, Mike, we love Port City Church. I'll say, great, what service do you go to? They go, oh, we don't go to Port City. So where do you go? Oh, we don't go anywhere. All right. It's interesting. Then it's usually something like this. We were having trouble in our marriage, and we came to your church, and y'all helped us. And we were having trouble with our finances, and we came to your church, and we went through one of y'all's programs, and y'all really helped us. Or we were having problems with our children, or we needed help raising our kids, or we had a baby, and we came to y'all's family ministries, your parent network. Y'all really helped us. And once you helped us, we were able to get back on with our lives. I thought, maybe the direction in which we help people actually matters more than I thought that it did. See, what happens is when we make everything about a decision, I'm gonna give you some handles. This is the first part of the handle. Whenever we start to make decisions, what'll happen is if you make a decision a decision, the way it's typically presented, is you need to trust Jesus for the forgiveness of your sins so that when you die, you will go to heaven. You make a decision for that. When you make a decision to be forgiven so that you get heaven when you die, what you have done is you have separated the call of Jesus, the very essence of what it means to be a disciple. You've separated these two. That is foreign in Jesus' thinking. That was never something he saw coming. What happens is it diminishes this and it causes us to lose sight of what it is actually we're called to. So we've said, here's what happens when we help you walk with God. If we are successful in our mission, we want for you to end up in what we are saying and calling life with God. We want your entire life to be consumed and lived with him, restored to his call and his purposes for your life. That's what we're after every single time, 100% of the time. Are your marriages important? Yes. Are your finances important? Yes. Is recovering and dealing with all the circumstances and situations important? Yes. We want to do this in a way that preserves and sort of centralizes your relationship, your reconciled relationship with the Father, to life with God. This is what it means for us to walk with him, to live as a disciple of Jesus Christ in the way of life under the rule of love. That's what we're talking about here. So we started to break this down, and what I want to do, like I said, to give you some handles. So there were two key statements. Both of these are from Dallas Willard, one of my other heroes. I'm going to put these on the screen. I'm going to mention them briefly. Then we're going to look at two things Jesus said, and then we'll be done. The first one is from Dallas Willard. He says this: Jesus is about the redemption of actual life from actual sin. Most of you read that and go, well, duh. Of course he is. If you made a decision for Jesus to forgive your sins so that you will go to heaven when you die, what about the next 30 years? What are you going to do? I ask people this. What are you going to do? Does Jesus care? Jesus came to redeem actual life from actual sin. This is not something that's pie in the sky. This is about your life and your way. And I'm going to share about my personal experience in just a minute. This is about what he's doing in you right here, right now, what you're going to do tomorrow and the next day. The reason he has come to redeem you from actual sin is because sin is not because it's bad and he wants you to be good. It's because sin is the thing that separates you. It keeps you from the life that he has called you to live. That's what it does. Every time you get down one of those rabbit trails of sin patterns in your life, of thought patterns, of things that move you, every time you indulge, you are pulling yourself away from the purposes. And Jesus has come and he says, I've come to snatch you back from that so you can live with the authority and the power that I've created you to live with. The only way that happens is in a relationship with him, to walk as his disciple. This is what he asked. We'll see that in just a minute. Jesus is about the redemption of actual life from actual sin. We're going to talk more about this. The second statement is this, and this is a harder one to figure out. The primary function of the church isn't evangelism, but rather to be a place for the dwelling of God on earth. John 17 is chock full of this. This is Jesus' prayer. That we would be one as he and the Father are one. That there would be this sense of the way in which we live life together, that we become the dwelling place of God, sort of an outpost, a kingdom within a kingdom, a city within a city, a nation within a nation of people, distinct people who are living out their calling before God together. And we become this dwelling place of God. You realize this is the message from the Old Testament all the way through the New. God was forming for himself a people with whom he would dwell. We would live life with God, and we'll add the second word, or the second phrase, together. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that together is way bigger than what any of us know, and I do not have time to deal with this today. We're going to do a whole series on this. Together isn't, because I'm reading this going, oh man, this is our vision right here, life with God together. We're going to sing Kumbaya, and that's going to be it. Life with God together, this is awesome. See, what happens is when we begin to learn this, we realize that we actually contribute to who it is that we are becoming. Talk about 1,000 little things. Your faith matters to who we are. I think about this in my own life. I have daughters, and they date boys. And you know what that's like, you can imagine. One's married, so we did good there. The other is still on her way. Here's what I think. God used my faithfulness for their strength. You ever thought about that? So when I'm tempted or I'm wrestling or I'm dealing with things, God, use my faithfulness now. This isn't just about me. Use my faithfulness for them. You ever prayed like that? You ever thought about that when you resist something that's in front of you, you might be being used to empower or strengthen somebody else in their journey? That your faithfulness might have a difference in my life, or your faithfulness might make a difference, that your faithfulness in that moment. It's to be able to recognize that everything that we do contributes to who we are. It's culture. Every time you say, well, my little part doesn't matter, you reduce the culture. Every time you step in and you just offer what you have, you increase the culture. You make it who we're supposed to become. Every little thing happens like this. Every little thing happens. We got to start seeing this. This is what we're talking about. This is the togetherness that we're talking about. We become the place where God dwells. You know what happens when we become the place where God dwells, and he dwells so richly in us? It's going to overflow into the world around us, because that's what God's heart is for. I think about this all the time, because sometimes as you look at your stuff and you go, man, we just got too much stuff. We should just do this and we should just do that. And I think, you know what? What the world needs is not to know what we're against. The world needs an advocate. When I think about what God wants to do to redeem the world, to redeem actual life from actual sin, he puts us in it to be agents of redemption. The idea that he's redeeming shalom in pockets, it's not going to be universal until he returns, until the renewal of the new heaven and the new earth come together. It's not going to be finished until that time, but in the meantime, you and I get a role in this. We get to do something about this. We get to live as though we were rightly related to God, because we are at shalom. It's not peace that everything is like super chill and we can just do yoga together. It's like this idea that we are rightly related to God. We are rightly related to one another. We are rightly related to our work. Can you imagine not needing your work to be your value or your identity or an idol? Can you imagine money not being that in your life? Can you imagine your relationship with your spouse and your family not being this resume building thing that you feel like you have to have in perfect order, but rather it's an expression of the rightness that you have with God? That's what shalom is. The world needs an advocate for that. The arts, music, business, economy, politics, all of these things, they need advocates. They need people who are working to redeem, agents of redemption in this culture that happens every single day when you and I go to school and we go to work. Some of you are like, you know, I really can't do anything because I got these like 2 or 3 little ones at home. Guess what you're doing with those 2 or 3 little ones? You're making disciples. You're helping them understand what life with God together looks like. You're helping them to understand, and some of you may be breaking generations of dysfunction in your family where you are the redeemed generation in your family tree. All because you make one decision at a time and you contribute and you're advocating for a world that desperately needs people who are for it. Y'all, I can tell you, as a pastor, as someone who gets to do this for a living, nothing would be more fun than just to shoot holes in everybody all the time for everything. People are like, amen, Mike, you're preaching today. It'd be easy, it'd be a lot of fun. The problem is, it's not what Jesus has asked us to do. You see, look at this. 2 things that Jesus said, and then I'll finish, I promise. I told you I had like 5 weeks of stuff. Matthew 4:18, Jesus was this is the call of Simon Peter and Andrew. Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee. He saw 2 brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake. They were fishermen. It would have been odd if they were accountants casting nets, but they were fishermen, so it was normal. And Jesus said, come follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people. And so immediately they left their nets and they followed him. I want to ask you 2 questions. Question number 1 is I want you to just consider for a moment your personal relationship with Jesus. Now, some of you will say, I made a decision for him when I was 8. That's great. Please don't hear me saying it is a moment decision where you trust Christ for his salvation is important. It is absolutely important. I'm just saying don't reduce it to thinking the only thing he's interested in is keeping you out of hell. He's invited you into a relationship with him that is current, it is ongoing, and it is eternal. It's not fire insurance. It's not just there when you need it. It's something that you are to live. He awakens us to life. The resurrected King is awakening, is resurrecting us. Consider your personal relationship, your personal response to Jesus. Some of you are like, man, I haven't really thought about responding to him in a long time. Some of you are like, I'm trying to do the best I can. It's all this guilt. I just want you to consider it. And the second question, when I talk about advocating for the world, what is your personal concern for his way, the ways of Jesus in this world? What is your personal concern for the ways of Jesus in this world? I'll tell you, did y'all enjoy Dan Clark last week? I listened to him 3 times. I took notes every time. And you know what I walked away with? You know what the thing that stung that God said to me? I'm all for feeding the children. I love what they do. But the thing that God kind of stung me on, what I realized in my own personal life by listening to him, how easy it is for me not to care about things that are important to God. Isn't it? I got my wife, my kids, my house, my paycheck, my stuff. I don't need to be bothered by what's happening around the world. It's so easy for us not to care. What is your personal concern for his work getting done in this world that we live in? That's some of you are going, you're torn. Because you really want it on one hand, but on the other hand, you're like, I'm just trying to figure out how to keep my kids from making me crazy, right? I'm just trying to figure out how to get into college. I'm just trying to figure out what major to pick. Like, I don't have time to worry about what's happening around the other side of the world. I got things right here in front of me. Don't you feel that way? Then we feel guilty. Or we feel bad. Maybe you're not a good Christian. Maybe you're not a good church. Here's the beauty of this. I want you to back this up and look at Jesus' command. His command is not to go and fish for people. What is his command? You may notice. Come, follow me. Come, follow me, and I will take care of everything else. Come follow me, and I'll put you where I want you, when I want you. Why? Because I'm doing something here, and I'm doing something there, and you're doing something, and you're doing something, and I'm doing something, they're doing something. And together, it's becoming this force that we couldn't even imagine. As I began to wrestle this, I looked back in my journals. There were 3 things that I said we have to do as a church. This is from 20 years ago. These are the 3 non-negotiables for any church that I wanted to be a part of. Thing number 1 was the church has to be radically devoted to helping people understand what it looks like to have a personal relationship with Jesus. We have to teach about quiet time and devotions and journaling and all kinds of stuff. We have to help people go, what is your walk with the Lord like? You have to know how to do that for yourself. We work hard to do that. The second thing is that we had to exist, and we use the phrase community. We have to exist in the sense of togetherness, right? The sense of togetherness. It's like I said, personal relationship, check. Togetherness, check. Life with God together, sing Kumbaya, check. But there was a third thing. And the third thing was that the church should never be measured by how many people attend it, but should be measured by its impact on the city in which it resides. If something happened to Port City Church, what would our city and our region miss about us? What would happen? We need to make a difference. So I was looking at this and going, life with God together, life with God together. I'm like, this is not enough. So the vision, the handles for the vision is life with God together for the world. It's not enough for us to get fired up about all the issues and just do things for the world in some humanitarian effort. It's not enough for you just to have you and your Jesus and go with your little group and be okay. It's got to be all these things. Life with God together. We got to learn how to become the dwelling place of God here on this earth. We have to learn how to become that. And then, together, we have to advocate for the world around us because Jesus intends to redeem actual life from actual sin, and we are his agents in that. Let me tell you why this matters so much. I can't go any further. I'm going to leave off the rest of it. Y'all are lucky. I mentioned earlier my prayer for about the last 5 or so years is, God, let me see. Let me see. Let me see. And I wanted desperately, I want to be able to tell our board and our staff, here's our strategic plan for all this stuff for the next 20 years. And I stopped praying that prayer and said, God, let me just see you. Because I realized that Jesus didn't say, Mike, I need you to go figure out how to be fishers of men and how to mobilize fishers of men. I just need for you to follow me. Mike, if you see me, I'll take care of everything else. Let me tell you the craziest thing about this. This is just my personal experience. I care about things that I would have never considered caring about 10 years ago. Like my heart is actually beginning to beat in those directions. I care about things I did not think I would care about 10 years. They weren't on my radar 10 years ago. And it's not because I studied the issues or went and tried to figure out how to be strategic about them. It's just I started really focusing on following Jesus wherever he was going to lead me. The reason I tell you that is because I don't want you to just make a decision for Jesus. I want you to make a decision to remain in him and to make that decision over and over and over and over and over again. Some of you are sitting here worried that you don't care enough about the world around you, and I'm going to say, don't worry about that. Don't try to muster up care. Don't try to muster up concern. Walk with Jesus. You follow him. You walk with him. You listen to him. You remain in him. If you remain in me, Jesus said, I remain in you, you will bear much fruit. If you learn how to live in this way, I'm telling you what's going to happen. Our hearts are going to expand. Do you know why? Because he has promised to complete the work that he has begun. But we can't take it back from him and go, we got it from here. Look at our strategic plan. Look at how we can solve all these things. He says, oh, no. The primary focus of the church is that we are a dwelling place for his people. We live out shalom with us together. And then as we do that, his heart is going to get revealed in the world around us. And it's going to be seen because his heart is for the world. Your heart for the world isn't going to be because you mustered it up. It's going to be because he gave it to us. That's what we want. I got to stop. God, thank you. Thank you. I thank you for what you have done for 20 years in and through this church. God, the stories and the people and all that. And God, my prayer is that you are preparing us for the next 20. That we don't rush ahead. We don't try to over-strategize. We just think and imagine what it would be like to bring your kingdom to bear right here where we live right now. Father, I pray for all of those in this room. I ask, Father, that each of us would consider our personal response to you and whether we ask you into our lives 20 years ago or maybe tonight, we're sitting here and going, we want to respond to you now. We want to trust you now. May our continual posture be to remain and make decisions to remain every single moment of every single day. That our lives would bear much fruit and that the fruit would be for your glory and that your heart would be reflected in the world around us. Life with God together for the world. God, let that get us up tomorrow morning. And I lift this name of your son, Jesus, who is our King. Amen.